Hello, my friends, my colleagues, my dear partners in clinical research, Alejandra, of course, Liliana Grinfeld and Ernesto. Thank you so much for having us. Greetings from New York, but I will be with all of you in less than, I think, 20 hours or so. So it is my pleasure to take part in this very important symposium on clinical research, and I was listening to all of the great comments from the audience regarding the role that Argentina plays in clinical research. And let me underline that for us at CRF and for all the clinical trials that we lead, Argentina is far and large a very, very important partner in enrolling trials. Our track record in Horizons AMI really proves what can be done with great leadership under the leadership of Liliana Grinfeld, who really took it upon herself to give us those 200 patients who were enrolled in Argentina in Horizons AMI study. This was a landmark study which made important differences in the way we treat acute myocardial infarction. And you should all be very, very proud to represent Argentina, and we believe that there are the potential of increasing clinical trial infrastructure in patient enrollment in Argentina is extremely important for us at the Cardiovascular Research Foundation and for all of the principal investigators who are leading important pivotal trials both in the United States, outside of the United States, and of course globally. So with that, I was asked today to talk about how we could develop clinical research team, and I apologize for those of you who already have the most incredible teams in place, but it is important to talk about that because I believe that there are some fundamental issues that needs to be addressed when you do choose to do clinical studies in your center. These are important disclosures for you to note. My biggest disclosure is that I am the Chief Scientific Officer here at the Clinical Trial Center at CRF, and I am devoted to clinical trials and clinical research at clinical sites, and that's what I do at Mount Sinai as well. So I think that this idea of how do we start and set up a thriving clinical research program, for me, has always been the fundamental issue, and how we could help set up, because it absolutely can be done at your centers, whether as long as you take care of the ABCs, and I'm hoping to bring that to you this morning. The goal should always be the highest goal you can achieve. And for me, it's always been to build a world-class clinical research group. If you don't have those high expectations for yourself, you're not going to achieve it. And very importantly, your real true goal should be academic output with peer-reviewed journal publications from the group. This has always been the fundamental reason for us at CRF and for us as academicians to really participate in clinical trials, because of the academic output and the gratification we get by having publications in peer-reviewed high-impact factor journals. And then, of course, you want to be the leader in both regionally, nationally, and globally in cardiovascular interventional trials. So how do we do this? You could do this through multiple clinical studies, and this is the piece that I love the most is investigator-driven studies. These are hypotheses generating, but really, if you do it well, you could have some true pivotal trials coming out of investigator-initiated studies for comparative effectiveness trials that usually sponsors aren't going to take that much of an interest in, but you could really, really answer important questions. Of course, registries are very important, becoming more and more important. At this year's TCT, which I'm hoping to see each and every one of you in less than 10 days, we're going to see some incredible trials presented just using registry data and using randomization schema within registry data. Randomized pivotal trials, obviously the gold standard, but we all want to build teams to support those important trials because you want to be part of those trials. And of course, government-sponsored trials, NIH-sponsored trials, Argentina has played an incredible role in the Freedom study, and absolutely, and furthermore, that was an NIH-funded study. But the first question you should ask yourself if you want to do research is, why should I? Why should I? I'm busy doing clinical work. I'm taking care of patients. Why should I do research? And that's a question that many, many young investigators who really just want to do lots of cases and they don't want to be bothered with research might ask me, and I come back to them and say, you know why? Because you contribute to advancement of cardiology, you have academic involvement in your private practice, you will have access to cutting edge technology, and certainly that's very, very important and essential for important procedures that are coming out of the pipeline. And most importantly, it will distinguish you from your peers. So that's a very important thing. And distinguishes not just you, but your practice, and it facilitates interaction with leaders in cardiology and may lead to faculty appointments, publications, invited lectures. And very importantly, I think for me, certainly, has been a personal lifetime fulfillment to be involved in clinical research. What do you need to get started? I think these are the ABCs. I think if you don't put these things together and you just go out there haphazardly, you will fail. You need yourself, hopefully, as the medical director, someone who's going to devote their time and effort in understanding how to run clinical research. You need a manager. You need to understand how to access to your institutional review boards that are looking at your protocols. You need help with regulatory issues, scheduling contracts. You need research coordinators, and certainly, very importantly, you should have storage space for your documents, for your investigational devices, and certainly office visits. And your colleagues in your hospital have to be in this with you as your team. And the essential requirements to me has always been to never do a shortcut and to always follow the rules. If you don't follow the rules, it's counterintuitive. It seems to you that if you do the rules, it's cumbersome, takes very, very much time. The protocols are so specific. But if you have protocol deviations, and if your site has a bad reputation, then not only will your site suffer, but your region and your country will suffer as saying, oh, they're no good, they can't do good research. Our data from, let's say, Argentina, God forbid, is not so good. And that's not what you'd ever want to hear. And very important is that high enrollment does not equal good research. It's not about quantity, but much more about the quality. You must make sure that when you're enrolling patients, they meet all inclusion criteria, and no exclusions should be included. And this is really, how you understand this is by understanding the types of patients that are supposed to be in your trial. And very importantly, enroll those patients who you know are going to be compliant with the protocol and the follow-up visits. You certainly don't want someone who's in Argentina for vacation and who happens to have a heart attack to be part of your study. And you never want to oversell a study. This is something we've seen happen, and then offering incentives, overselling studies comes back to bite you. So very important to always have two people go over the checklist before you actually enroll a patient. This is how you exclude any kind of an exclusion criteria or deviations. Let me underline that one of the most important things is the rights of that patient being enrolled in a trial. I always tell my colleagues, especially us at CRF, that behind every piece of paper that comes through and every case report form stands a human body and a patient. And that patient has the right to know what they're getting themselves into. It's important for you, the patient, and very important for the regulatory bodies. And this is how you get yourself out of any kind of a newspaper, for example, for the hepatitis vaccine that I just heard you guys talking about. The physician is the responsible party for this. You have to make sure that the regular language of the patient, it is understood. For us in the US, we have to have multiple translators to make sure that the patient really understands. And it's important to have other people, family members, etc., present there. And always to have confirmation by two research personnel. You need to document everything. And for those of you who might be involved in FDA-regulated studies, which we're hoping to get Argentina more and more involved in, it's important that you really have all of these signatures and chart notes and documentation, especially if you have a visit from what we call a BIMO audit. And it's always important to reconfirm consent. When you have a BIMO audit from any kind of a governmental agency, the first thing they go to is to make sure that the rights of the patients have been preserved and respected. So the informed consent is where they go. So make sure that you think about those illiterate, incompetent patients that might be the very easy patients to get in, and it's important to make sure that you've done everything, your best capability to inform that patient for the consent. That is why it's called informed consent. The patient is supposed to be informed. The research procedures are really important. It's very important to have and make sure that you follow the rules, review and educate all of your involved clinical staff. Always make sure that you reference the protocol, and very important to be sure that the research labs that are part of the protocol and perhaps not the standard of practice, that they're ordered, that they're gotten, because if you miss an endpoint, then you've informed that patient and enrolled the patient for not a good enough reason, because you lose the endpoint, especially if laboratory values are the endpoints. Play by the rules. This is my number one motto. Always, always try to avoid protocol deviations, but believe me, you will have some. And when there is some, it's not the end of the world. The worst thing you can do is to hide that and put it under the rug. The most important thing is to say and admit that you had a protocol deviation, and here we are with our corrective action plans to make sure that it never happens again. And very important to make sure that you allow to understand your institution knows the adverse events that come in, that you keep up with the CRF, the case report forms, you keep up with the signature, the monitor letters, and you make sure that all of this happens through regular research team meetings. And then, of course, making sure that you're being paid for all of this by keeping track of the payments. The bottom line and the buck, as we say it in the States, stops at the PI. In other words, if anything goes wrong, it's the principal investigator who faces the consequences. That principal investigator should be hands-on, lead the study coordination, know the protocol well, make sure you meet and greet with the monitors, and really has a very good way of knowing how to market appropriately for the enrollment of the study. Make sure you know, as the principal investigator, that actually the study monitors and the sponsors are your friends. They're on your side. So prepare yourself for them. They are preparing you for any kind of an audit, and make sure that you're doing well. They help you fix problems before they become a big deal. And so don't be defensive with mistakes. All of those people should meet. The PI, the medical director, the research manager should meet the monitor at every visit, prepare and schedule for the visit's success, review the letters, and address any issue that's been raised. And if you do have an audit, whether it's from the US FDA or your own regulatory group, the best way to prepare is to do good research all along the way, so you're never ever worried and your face is never red and your hands are never shaking when an auditor comes in. I always tell my team, we need to be FDA audit ready every day. And as soon as we know that a government agency person is in our door and they can come in at unannounced, we need to notify the sponsor and the monitor immediately, schedule the audit when the PI and the important people are ready and present and adequately prepared, and make sure that before they come in, they usually give you 1 or 2 days notice, that you review everything beforehand, you meet with the monitor, and make sure you get everything beforehand ready. So now let's go to the enrollment. How do you become a good enroller and a good qualified site? First, you do everything on a quality level, but then if you want to actually be both have high quality and have high quantity, you create a strategy that maximizes the percentage of appropriate patients who are enrolled. So you need to be proactive, enthusiastic, make sure you involve your partners, you share your success. This is not just about you. Research is not about one person, it's about a team. And you don't miss the elective cases, you screen well, you educate repeatedly, and you advertise appropriately. And the strategies is to be proactive, enthusiastic, very much involved, sharing your success with others. It's not all about you. Motivating your team, underline team. Waiting for patients doesn't really work. And you have to know that you may be the only advocate for the study. So you must know the protocol and the strategy very, very well. There's a nice roadmap here. And it's really, the support comes from the full-time physicians, both in the cath lab and your collaborators. Those are referring physicians, surgeons. Yes, surgeons. We have to work very well with them. Right now, the heart team approach is the way everyone is looking at strategy trials. And that includes communication, standard operating procedures, training, making sure your finances, and let me go through them one by one. Physician support, very important. You must be transparent with your group. You should be willing to screen and enroll patients into the study. You should be supportive of your research staff with full respect for their work and efforts. And open your communication regarding any issues or requests that come in, especially with your research manager. You must communicate. And this is really through meetings, very, very important. Weekly meetings, make sure the members give their brief, organized presentations of the study to go over the enrollment and what their goals are, what issues were, what was the follow-up rates. These are really important and shows you're actually part of the research, not just in enrolling, but also in following up the protocol, following up the procedures, and following up the patients for their outcomes. And this comes through setting standard operating procedures. These are needed for all the new studies, delineation of responsibility, especially when you have standard operating procedures. That's how you get people to follow. Brand new employees who come in, they understand how your procedures work. And if you keep it all the same and no shortcuts, you won't have issues. And when a new study comes in, the first two questions you should ask, three questions really you should ask yourself is, will this study benefit not you as the person, but the program, the team, the hospital? And how would it be benefiting? Is it scientific, academically rewarding? So you look at the design, the impact of the question that's being asked. Is it going to make financial sense? I always put that in, and it sounds terrible, but you know what? Without financial support, you're not going to be able to go anywhere. So it has to make sense financially. And so the budget analysis, preparation, and negotiation is a very key piece in your clinical research program. And then very importantly, is this going to help you professionally? And so when you go to the training and the regulatory and ICH guidelines, let's not ever make any shortcut. All your staff should be well versed on all the regulations as it pertains to the research. They should be inspection ready, and certainly there should be training for pretty much everything. I talked already about the program finances, and data management systems are really important for you to be able to have a good understanding and access to how the data is going through your department. Lastly, and most importantly, is establishment of a publication office. We published over 110 articles already from the Horizons AMI study. That to me is the most rewarding piece of what I've done and my involvement in the Horizons AMI study under the leadership of Dr. Greg Stone. He's always taught us that publications come first, and this really comes from my first days working with Gary Mintz when he told me that abstracts mean nothing, let me see the papers. So always think about the publications. Lastly, I want to just tell you about the studies you should or should not do. Focus on the strength of your group. Don't get involved in a study that you don't have. Avoid competing studies, low enrolling studies. You want to develop a very good reputation. And finally, start conservatively and then build yourself your reputation. Focus on excellence. Always think about the patient first. Communicate well to all of your colleagues, but very importantly to your staff, and make sure that you're a likable team player. Don't think of this as you as the central place, and share your success. Clinical research is incredibly rewarding. I tell you, it's the most rewarding piece of what I've done in my academic life. but it means that you should be committed and enthusiastic. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Rox. Excellent presentation. After the questions, we will... No.
Yeah, we've got Dr. Mintz waiting here in the sidelines. So we've got, unfortunately, I went over because I thought it was very important to discuss this. So in 5 minutes, he's ready to come, and I don't want to make him wait. So let's
We are waiting
sure
for
that the
him.
questions are okay. Good.
Yeah. Any question from the audience? Rox, thank you so much, and we are very much... Oh, one question. No, we are very much looking forward to
Alfredo
seeing
Rodriguez. I can see it.
But he will wait.
I see the back of you guys, but I can recognize you from the back. Imagine. Hello, my darling, Liliana. Hello.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody. And
I'll see you all tomorrow.
Sure.
And hope I will have more time with each and every one of you. Thank you so much for having us. We are very proud to be a partner with Cassie SAC, to have our dear friends in Argentina represent us around the globe. From the perspective of TCT and clinical trials. And I can't wait to see each and every one of you and greet you all both tomorrow in Argentina, but in 10 days in San Francisco. I want to see a big Argentina showing in TCT, despite the fact that you have this big meeting here this week. So thank you again for all of your incredible support. We really, truly admire all of you and love working with you. And with that, I bring Dr. Gary Mintz.
Thank you so much. Thank you.